Hi, and welcome to the Kelly Kitley podcast, America's Social Worker Unfiltered, where every week I have hopeful, honest, and deeply human conversations with changemakers. And today I am so honored to introduce you to Emma Benoit, who is a mental health speaker, a suicide attempt survivor, and she was featured in the documentary My Ascension. I am so grateful to have you here today. I've been looking so forward to this interview with you.
Oh, likewise. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. As I was telling you earlier, I've been a little weepy this morning because so many of my listeners are middle-aged women mothers who have teenagers. And in a mental health crisis that we have experienced throughout the pandemic and kind of seeing the aftermath of that with some of our young people. I'd love to just start with where you were at the age of 16. I'm getting to talk to you in real time as almost a 26-year-old woman. And I just want to give you the opportunity to share your story from a mental health perspective at the age of 16.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my story is very parallel to the story of many 16, 17-year-olds now today. I was your average all-American girl. I had a stereotypical life. I had a supportive family, middle class, great school, great friends. I was very involved in my sport. I loved cheerleading. I was a really good cheerleader, and I loved that. I had a deep passion for my sport. And on the outside, my life, the circumstances of my life seemed virtually perfect. There were no indications of any kind of mental struggle or emotional pain, but under the surface, there was mental pain and emotional struggle, and vice versa of both. And so because my life on the outside reflected that of a seemingly perfect life, internally, that not matching up, I really began to struggle with anxiety and depression and not knowing or understanding what is anxiety, what are the symptoms of anxiety, what is depression, what are the symptoms of depression, not really understanding or knowing the full scope of mental health. I struggled in silence for many years. And what my struggles looked like on the outside was perfectionism and fear of failure and the desire to be perfect in everything, all aspects. I put a lot of pressure on myself academically, with my sport, with my relationships, and anytime something would go wrong, per se, my brain would spiral into catastrophe, and I would be stuck in this loop of shame and guilt and self-doubt. And like I said, because I had no awareness of mental health or
Mhm.
no coping skills, no emotional regulation abilities, I would hit rock bottom pretty significantly. And that is kind of the course that I took with my mental health as a youth. And then, getting into high school, certainly those struggles kind of amplified. I always like to say that when I was small, my struggles were kind of beginning to take form. And
Mhm.
then when I grew older, they really kind of took over. And so I kind of identified myself with my negative emotions and my mental health, my mental wellness being poor, I would say. So
Okay.
anytime I would struggle,
Mhm.
I would immediately attach it to my identity. And so this is kind of a dance that I was doing mentally and emotionally behind the scenes
Mhm.
because the stigma is also a huge factor in my story. I didn't want anyone to see me any differently. I didn't want someone, a coach, a parent, a teacher, a friend to look at me and label me or um, just want to give me a quick pep talk and then send me on my way. I really was afraid of reaching out for help
Mhm.
because I didn't know what it looked like. And I didn't know that mental health is a major component of our overall well-being. I
Mhm.
really had never heard the words mental and health used together before my suicide attempt.
Oh my gosh. I'd like to think that we've come so far since 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago, but we still have so far to go. And
Yes.
having kept all of that inside your brain in that moment of your suicide attempt. Is it something that you had thought about before? Yes.
I had thought about suicide for probably a couple of years here and there throughout my high school experience prior to my attempt at the age of 16. It was the summer before my senior year of high school that I attempted suicide. And so leading up to my attempt, I had really been struggling with my mental health. But again, not understanding or being able to identify that that's what I was struggling with, I put it all on myself as my own problem. I'm the issue. There's something wrong with me for
Mhm.
feeling the way that I felt. And I was in a spiral of invalidating my own emotions. And so one moment of crisis, one fateful day, those emotions were at their peak and I fell victim to my suicidal thoughts and I impulsively acted on a thought that had been kind of surfacing
Mhm.
anytime a moment of crisis would present itself. And I like to tell people something that I've learned from my lived experience and through therapy, that crisis is self-defined. And I was stuck in this narrative that my emotions, my crisis isn't that big of a deal because I was in comparison. So I was comparing my emotions and my struggles to people who have vastly different stories than my own.
Mhm.
So stuck
Mhm.
in that invalidation,
Mhm.
I impulsively acted on my suicidal thoughts that day.
And then you immediately regretted it.
Immediately regretted it. I knew in that moment after I pulled the trigger that that is not what I wanted to do. That is not the outcome that I wanted to see. And I realized in that moment that suicide is a trick. It's a lie. And I didn't want to not be alive. I just wanted the circumstances of my reality to look and feel differently. I wanted my pain to go away.
Sure.
And I didn't have the solutions outside of the one solution that my brain was screaming at me to take.
Sure. Oh my gosh. And the documentary is such a perspective of hope. And I know that that's what you live by and that you educate people about. And you truly believe that this is your mission in life. I feel so grateful to talk to you because I have worked with families on the other side who have lost a family member due to suicide. And so having I have chills all over my body, like getting a snapshot of what somebody in such desperation is feeling in that moment and to live through that and to be able to educate families about how to support somebody, how um, other teenagers who are hearing your story, who may have been in a similar situation and are struggling with their own mental health. So, do you talk about like pre-suicide attempt and post-suicide attempt, like kind of these two worlds of where you live today?
Absolutely. I certainly identify my lived experience pre-suicide attempt versus post-suicide attempt. And I have so much wisdom and knowledge that I've gained through overcoming all of the hardships and all of the mental and emotional struggles that I was going through as a minor and as a teen. And so it's really important for me to get to share my story in such a candid and open way with families and with teenagers and with staff at school to be able to maybe show them, like you're saying, the behind the scenes of
Mhm.
what it's like for someone who's actually struggling with their mental health, because society paints this picture, right? We have this narrative or this I guess this idea of what a person struggling looks like, or the way that they're showing up in the world and the way that they're presenting their emotional struggle. And my story is completely counter to that narrative. I didn't show any outward signs of major severe depression.
Mhm.
I didn't show any, signs of suicide in the way that it's taught. Now, looking back, hindsight is 2020, of course, and I call on those moments of losing the passion for cheerleading, not wanting to try out for my cheerleading my senior year. So
Mhm.
those were small indications that
Sure.
I was struggling, but I think my story really paints the picture for a lot of youth today in America who are struggling, a
Mhm,
lot of people today who are
mhm,
struggling, who feel like there's something wrong with them for struggling.
mhm. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I I work my own recovery, and the slogan that I like to say is, "I need my insides to match my outsides," you
Mhm.
know, and there are memes go that I have seen, or posts about, like, check on your strong friends, right? Because we look at somebody and we assume that they're okay, and we really have no idea what is going on in somebody's head. And as a parent myself, I can only imagine what your parents' response was to this, and maybe blaming, or how did I not notice, or so what has that journey been like? I mean, did you recognize that there was a family history of any mental health, perhaps, or
Yes, certainly. Prior to my attempt, I was not aware of the mental health, um, I guess, background of my family's history.
Mhm,
But after my attempt, I learned that my grandmother had suffered with suicidal ideation, had made attempts of her own when she was a young person. And my father as well has experienced depression and anxiety. My mom is diagnosed with anxiety. So it's definitely it has a pattern in my family, but obviously because of the stigma and because of these idea that we don't want to burden our children with the knowledge that we have struggled,
mhm,
I was unaware.
mhm,
But my family's response was one that I'm super grateful for. I've learned of people who've had attempts where their families weren't so um, gracious and responsive in terms of wanting to help their loved one. And I think all of that stems from fear, right? I think the guilt that a person feels
mhm,
is stemming from fear, and maybe some shame as well. So I acknowledge, everybody has a different starting point, right, with where they're at mentally and emotionally. And when someone attempts suicide or dies by suicide, there is no right way to respond to something like that. But I was very grateful for my family's response. We came together, we got into therapy together, we all learned and grew so much throughout the process. And it actually encouraged a lot of dialogue and many changes within all of us. So I'm very grateful to see that dynamic shift in such a profound way.
mhm,
Um, and I even was encouraged by my mom to share my journals and create a website that turned into a blog essentially,
yeah.
because I was so comfortable with my mom and became vulnerable for the first time ever to show my true self and my true emotional compass and my true thoughts with my mom. And she was so inspired by my experience and my way to share my experience in my journals. Journaling was the number one thing that my therapist recommended that I loved. It was great for me.
Same. As a therapist of 25 years, I recommend that to my clients, and I personally, prescribe to that as well. It is such a cathartic healing journey, and to let somebody else into that really is such a gift. And I'm never sick, because you're vocal about your recovery story. I am too. I don't want anybody to ever feel like they need to have a platform to share their story. Just telling one person can make all the difference.
Certainly. It's kind of like therapeutic to
Mhm,
write out all the things that I never felt like I could express verbally. And so sharing that with someone just added to that therapeutic, experience for me personally. But I agree, you don't have to have a platform.
mhm.
Just share your story with someone that you feel safe doing so with, and that alone is healing enough.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I heard the 911 call
Mhm.
through the documentary. What happens then? So you go to the emergency room. There's physical components of you needing to heal. There's emotional, mental, like that was your rock bottom.
Yes, absolutely. So I attempted suicide using a firearm and I injured my left carotid artery was completely severed. So I was immediately air rushed, air medicated helicopter ride to the hospital.
Mhm,
Um, and I had the best care, the best surgeons, and they acted fast and surgery to replace the artery with the stent. And after that, it was a series of 6 months of recovery physically, mentally, emotionally. I got into physical therapy, I got into occupational therapy, speech therapy, and then, of course, mental health therapy as well. But my injuries were pretty significant and very severe. I developed a spinal cord injury from a large blood clot that was pressing down on my spinal cord from the internal bleeding of the carotid artery. And so I was paralyzed from the chest down originally.
Mhm.
And that recovery was brutal, but it gave me so much perspective and it helped me realize that my emotional pain didn't have to turn into physical pain.
Mhm.
So it kind of was a good, for me, it was a good moment to just pause and
Mhm.
focus on me, getting physically well, getting mentally well, getting emotionally well. It was a journey. It was a difficult journey,
Mhm.
but looking back, I'm very grateful for the journey that I was able to go on because, the alternative is so much worse and so much more devastating. So I always say there is nothing that my physical journey, could compare to someone who lost a loved one to suicide.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's some cognitive restructuring and reframing.
This brain is a different brain today than it was back then, for
Oh
sure.
my gosh. So, did your mental health therapeutic journey include intensive outpatient treatment, weekly psychotherapy? Like, what did that look like for you?
So I actually shopped for my therapist because I didn't connect with the first two therapists that I was put with. And I think that's okay. I think that's important to let people know that, you're not going to connect with everyone. And therapy is such a vulnerable, raw experience, and you're giving a lot of yourself to an individual. So definitely find your person. And I found my person. We did cognitive behavioral therapy,
Mhm.
dialectical behavioral therapy,
Uh-huh.
all the therapies, and it was really, really helpful for me. I am a very analytical thinker. I'm a very structured thinker.
Mhm.
And so being able to kind of unpack some of the fault lines in my cognitive abilities was really important for me.
Mhm. It's like it can be life-changing.
Life-changing.
And do fast forward to where you are today, what does your daily mental health practice look like?
I'm a big believer in mindfulness. I'm a big believer in breathing techniques. That is my anchor. If I'm feeling mentally overstimulated, I just recenter myself with my breath, and that always pulls me back into a calm center of self.
Mhm.
And so I use that every day throughout the day and mindfulness as well. I like to try to keep a larger, grander perspective on situations and challenges. And I've reframed my thinking to look like challenge equals lesson, challenge equals opportunity for growth. So I'm big on, self-talk, positive self-talk, only speaking the future that you want to see for yourself. And I've removed any kind of, I call them ants, automatic negative thoughts. I've kind of squished them before
Can
they
you
come.
please go back to school and be a therapist? I mean, I am like, who is this girl? You are like wise beyond your years.
You. I love sharing all of the things that I'm learning
Mhm.
with our next generation. That is where my heart is. That's my mission. That's my calling.
Uh-huh.
I I have full body chills right now. Like I get so fired up to get to tell all of this amazing information to our next generation and their families and the people that are with them every day, all day at school.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You're married.
Yes, and it's the best.
How did you meet your husband?
We met through a mutual friend. He went to a separate school in my community, and we had a mutual friend. And one day in March of 2020, ringing a
Oh
bell
my gosh, in the height of the before the pandemic started or after?
right
Okay.
before it came down south. We were just kind of hanging out at his dad's house, having a good time, getting to know each other. It was a group of us, and it was love at first sight for both of us. We just fell instantly in love. I was just so enamored by him and his optimism and his spontaneity and just the character of him. And he would say the same for me. But then COVID hit,
Yeah.
so we met that one day, and then COVID took over the world, and we kind of just stayed in touch virtually. And
Okay.
say that we quarantined together. So the rest is history.
Oh my gosh. And I mean, anybody, and I'll put this all in the show notes, like how to find you and your Instagram. I mean, you are very visual. Your pictures are gorgeous, from your wedding and just day-to-day stuff that you post. Where are you today physically? So you sometimes I see you in a wheelchair, sometimes in pictures you're able to stand if maybe you're leaning up against something. Is that accurate?
So I have the strength to stand unassisted for a couple of minutes, like 20 to 30 minutes.
Okay.
Um, I can take steps with assistance. I
Okay.
can't walk unassisted, but I can walk with assistance,
Okay.
like short distances. I use my wheelchair predominantly. It is my freedom. I
Mm,
love my wheelchair. It gives me the ability to see the world and do things that I wouldn't be able to do otherwise.
mm.
But I have all of my abilities, so I can, take showers by myself. I'm home by myself when my husband goes off to work. So
Okay.
I'm 100% independent minus, the ability to stand for long periods and walk normally. But yeah, I've recovered a great deal. I'm very grateful for my recovery.
And can you drive?
I can. I drive my vehicle without any adaptation. So I went back to driver's ed, round two in driver's ed, and passed again, got my license again. But my feet are perfectly capable when I'm in a seated position.
And we discussed before we started recording if and when you and your husband would like to have children, to be determined. You're going to wait till you get
Yep.
into your 30s to think about that more seriously.
Yes. But I mean, we are open to anything, if it happens, that's a miracle, that's a blessing,
Uh-huh.
and we'll just kind of plan it out.
And how does he support you in your mental health journey? Because I think that is equally as important are the people who are in relationship with somebody who struggles with mental health issues or, and just to support people in general.
He is the best supporter I've ever had in my life. He really gives me the ability to just be raw. I tell people that I can turn my brain off when I'm around him because he is such a guiding light for me. He is my center of gravity. He is my ground. He's like my home. If I feel like I'm lost and confused and overwhelmed and have all kind of thoughts racing and stuff, he just quiets my mind. He runs me a bath. He just takes care of me. He is the best person for me. And he comes with me when I do my screening work, my speaking work. He travels with me. So he is literally my support. I mean, he is
Gosh.
the reason why I am able to travel the country sharing my story, sharing my documentary film, my ascension. He is my right-hand man.
Oh my gosh.
It's
And
amazing.
are you both similar in age?
We are. He is 25. He'll be 25 in April.
Okay. Oh my gosh. And the business that you created is called Emma Speaks.
Yes.
And people can book you to speak maybe at their high school or college and also do a screening of the film. And I need to look into this because I want to bring you to the Chicagoland area. But how can people find you and what does that look like if they hire you?
Yeah, so we have several different options. I can do a keynote speech, which is my presentation, where I share my story, my lived experience, that runs about 45 minutes to an hour. And I always include a Q&A, a live Q&A session where we put a QR code up and people can scan it and ask questions anonymously. So this is a really good opportunity for people who maybe don't want to disclose themselves, share what's on their heart, but they can, put that question in there and it will come to me. So I do keynote speeches with Q&A, or I do screenings of the documentary film. There's two different versions, a 90-minute and a 55-minute. I do screenings of the film and then followed by a live Q&A session afterwards. Now, this kind of presentation, the screening and Q&A, is the best matched for high school students. It brings out a level of discussion that these students have been craving, and it shows the staff kind of some of the things that they can work on in mental health aspects for their school and their students. So the screening accompanied by the Q&A is the most profound, and it leaves a lasting impact. There's a program featured in the film called Hope Squad, and since we started sharing the documentary with high schools, we have been able to inspire over 40 Hope Squads in the country to become a program in school. So we're not only bringing positive, uplifting, encouraging mental health care and suicide prevention, we're also leaving lasting impact through Hope Squad.
Oh my gosh, what a legacy and how transformative that is and needed. And I do want to give you credit for how you show up, and that's how the impact happens, right? You're very relatable, you're very approachable, um, you're very honest, and the visual storytelling that accompanies the talk is so powerful. Um, so I mean, you're busy enough, and I know that you've shared your story on national media outlets as well. What is your, I feel like you're like a 70-year-old woman with your lived experience. Like, I guess my question for you is like, what now? And before you answer that, I do want to something before I forget when we were talking about coping mechanisms and you saying mindfulness and being grounded and restructuring your thoughts, I think a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, 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 like mindfulness and meditation. The way you logged on this morning when I was running a few minutes late was in real time of you saying, I said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I'm running late. And you said, that's okay. I'm just enjoying the quiet and the morning. And you were talking about the rain and like that's real. You're getting teary eyed.
I want that for others deeply, to have a peace because it feels so good. So that's what's next for me. I want others to be able to feel content just with being themselves. You are enough. I'm enough. We're all enough, you know? And that's what I want to share with the world. And it brings me so much joy that I get to be here to do it. I am so fulfilled by any and every opportunity I get to share my story, whether it's a podcast or on stage with 200 students. I'm just so grateful.
Peace. Yeah, that's what I think we're all striving for. I mean, it's so hard externally with everything that's going on, but sometimes we just have to put up our blinders and look within to find that calm. Whew. Last question. What does your, you've used words like miracles and blessings and um, religion and spirituality are different, or they can be the same. Um, one can happen without the other. I am curious to know what does your higher power look like today as a survivor of a suicide attempt? I think there might be some thread of God or whatever you may call something bigger than yourself. Or maybe
It
not. I shouldn't assume.
You are not wrong for assuming. It has taken its own journey and it has become it's created a new form for me. So I don't claim to be religious. I don't follow a structured religion or anything like that. I am a deeply spiritual person and I believe in the divine source.
Yeah.
And we are all light beings
Uh-huh.
that are from that divine source.
Mm.
So I'm extremely spiritual,
Mhm.
extremely.
I love that. And so, what do you do to awaken that outside of your presence and your meditation and your mindfulness? Like, do you have experiences throughout the day? I call them God winks, you know, when some, or you even use the word serendipity. I love that. Like those are spiritual connections and just being aware and open to them.
That's the key. Awareness and openness. And that's what I try to do. I try to lead with the heart, like lead with your heart and be heart-centered in everything. And what I've noticed recently within the last 2 to 3 years since really plugging into my spiritual journey is synchronicities
Mhm,
and numerology.
mhm,
I see 314 every single day. It
mm.
is my anchor. And if anyone knows anything about angel numbers, it is just indications from your spirit guides and from your guardian angels that they are working with you.
Mm.
So I love anytime I get to see a synchronicity, whether it's 444 or 314. And I just like to look it up. What does this mean? What message is being sent to me? And I'm open and I'm aware. That's kind of the key.
Absolutely. And it doesn't take anything catastrophic to happen to have that awakening or awareness. I know sometimes people assume, right, if you've been in the trenches that you have this awakening, or we can only have that awakening if, you know, somebody has struggled with cancer or have hit rock bottom or any of those things. Start where you're at
Start.
today. Yeah. Mhm.
Absolutely. It's possible for all of us to find our connection to the higher source, to the divine source, to the higher power that we all are come from.
Yeah.
That's what I believe. And
Mhm.
it's been the one thing that has felt the most true to me.
I couldn't agree more. Is there a book in your future?
There is. I am writing the story as we speak. I love to tell people that I have producers or publishers I have people knocking on my door, waiting and ready for me to get to writing. And I do journal still to this day.
Mhm.
My notes app, like I told you guys, I am very structured. It is organized down to a T.
Your perfectionism is coming through a little bit.
Look, I'm a perfectionist in recovery. That's what I like to
I
say.
love that. Yes.
It'll be a book in the future.
Okay. Okay. Well, we will be waiting. And it is my goal to find a way to bring you to the Chicagoland in the next school year. So I need to meet you in person.
I agree. It would be a joy to meet you in person and get to hug you.
Yeah.
Well, I've been to Chicago, love
Okay.
Chicago.
Uh-huh.
But we've never been with my story. We've never been to any of the schools in Illinois. So
Stop it. Okay, I'm on it. I am on it. Thank you so much for shining a light, and your energy is contagious. It just radiates through the screen. Um, and I can't wait for people to listen. And thank you everybody who is listening now, and follow Emma for more inspiration. And I didn't share with you, my daughter's name is Emma, and my great grandmother's name is Emma, and my sister's name is Emma. So it is a family name. So
see, right, that right there is the invisible string connecting us. I
I,
love
I
things like that. That's
I do too. I do too. Thank you. And for everybody listening today, just a friendly reminder to be the change you wish to see in the world, whether that starts with you, your family, your community, or the world. Thanks for listening and have a great day.